Okay. Thanks everyone for joining in for our this month's Bachpan Manao Barte Jao Masterclass, which I'm very excited about because this has been the month of play, and we're talking about a topic that we don't usually delve into, which is playful parenting and how can we nurture playful learning communities. And for this, we have with us Helen Isar, who is the director of Papagoya, which is a kindergarten and school based in Bangalore, which is also a place-centric learning space that follows the Norwegian kindergarten framework for the pre-primary years and incorporates the pedagogy of play framework in its school. It all sounds absolutely wonderful, and I'm going to hand it to Helen to explain everything about it and more.
Thanks, Maitri. It's so lovely to be here and be part of the Bachpan Manao campaign. I think it's such an important message we all have to promote this idea of play and the criticality of it for children, and that we have to bring this back more and more. I'm really excited to be here to be talking about a topic that is very dear to my heart in the Papagoya ecosystem on how do we involve parents in our playful spaces, right? A quick summary on Papagoya. So just to follow up on what Maitri said, we work with children in the age range of 1 year all the way to 12 years right now, 1 to 6, which is in our kindergarten. We're a full day play-focused space, very inspired by the Norwegian approach. And we have a progressive micro school, which is currently for children between the ages of 6 to 12 years, where we use the framework from the pedagogy of play to bring in play into sort of very mainstream how education has become today, and to see how we can bring joy back, right? So today I'm going to focus, of course, on the parents aspect of it. I'm going to move into a quick screen share, and then we can kickstart the conversation from there. All right. So nurturing a playful community, and sort of where did this start for us, right? When we started talking about this idea of playful learning in the Indian context, many people looked at us and, thought we were a little crazy, like how does play and learning fit in together? If you're in a kindergarten or school ecosystem, it's of course siloed. How do these two things come together? And we realized there was this huge gap in actually getting parents on board to be able to see for themselves and educate them, but also participate and see the wonder of, and having that wow moment of, okay, I see how these two come together. I see how the learning matches to the play, right? And typically this is because we've all sort of studied in the last 20 odd years in the Indian context, we've studied in very rigorous environments where the focus was on a set of success metrics, was on failure or success, right? Was on grades. So does learning actually happen outside that, and how could that happen has always been a question that parents have for us. And they would take that leap of faith and say, I trust you, we're going to do this because you're saying it's good for my child. But we realized we could build that trust more when we started involving them, right? Yeah. So the word community, I know this is flung around a lot, but why do we sort of hold on to it, right? It really conveys this sense of togetherness, the sense of positivity, the sense of solidarity, but also this sense of it is not just me, one, right? My action impacts a larger space. This idea of also thinking about the other, right? And it's not a question of how me and my child are doing in this space, but everything I do has an equal reaction to everybody else in this space, right? And bringing that sense of community means we're always thinking of everybody who partakes in this space. So when we talk about community, and I think this is true for many schools who want to make this leap, right? When we talk about community, for us, the community is equal parts our children, equal parts our educators, and equal parts our parents, right? Traditionally, when you look at education in India, it's always been the school knew best, and they would tell you and you would do as a parent, right? Or as a child, or even as an educator. But as sort of that ecosystem has evolved, and of course, with the explosion of how easily content is available at our fingertips, that changed to saying, hey, I know a different opinion, and now can I actually participate in that, right? And share my opinion with you. And so this idea of community was really coming together for the betterment of everybody. I'm a better educator because a parent and I can have a conversation. I'm a better educator because a child and I can have a conversation about this and participate, right? So we really feel that learning spaces need to evolve into hearing and listening to all parts of that form this community. And today, we're specifically going to wear the parent hat in the conversation that we're going to have. Also, as questions pop up, please feel free to put them in the chat, and then, Maitri, let me know if you'd like to if you feel it's something we should answer now or at the end. So, sort of, what are some of the tenets of community, right? There's a huge sense of identity and belonging, and community has always given us strength in difficult times. If you see, this idea of community really bubbled through the pandemic, right? We all found our communities, be it the localities we lived in, the shops that surrounded us, right? So that sense of identity and belonging becomes very, very strong. They absolutely don't happen, right? There's things that you have to maintain and build and continue to rebuild over a period of time. We've been at it for 8 years, and every year we find ourselves having to innovate on what does our community need today, and what is the kind of care that we need to give, and how has the world changed or our ecosystem changed to be able to aid that and create that sense of community, right? It takes so many forms, right? It could be, just chatting, a friendly hi, hello every morning at gate when your parents are doing a drop off, to shared events, to forums, to finding to involving parents. So there is no set way on how you build community. It is truly up to you and how you choose to build your community, right? I go deeper in a session here, and I actually say, how can you use policy to build community, right? You have a medical policy, you have a health policy, you have a biting policy, right? You can actually create community around even just policy when you're looking at it, right? And of course, the last is the care we choose to invest in our communities, right? That makes it a more resilient and a more welcoming space for everybody involved in that space. So what does nurturing thriving community, what do you need to do to sort of nurture these thriving communities, right? You build them, you nurture them, you find a way to unite them, you continue building them, you continue to find a way to nurture them, you continue to find a way to unite them, and the cycle repeats itself, right? It's, like I said, it's not a fixed formula. And today what I want to share with you is many versions and iterations of things we're doing, which also undergoing change this year in the way that we choose to build out our community. But it's really keeping your ear to the ground to see what are people saying, keeping those doors open for communication that start give you indicators of, how can I start involving my community? What else does it take? It's really messy. You're going to make 200 mistakes along the way, if not more. It's never going to be perfect. And it will continue to be like a mix and match scenario. What worked 5 years ago to suddenly you see now, and you want to reiterate, especially when you're looking at how do I involve parents. There is boredom that sets into your community. We saw this so much in the pandemic, especially. Like when you make things very structured, when you make them very calendared, when you make them, to-dos, and they start becoming to-dos, then your community starts facing fatigue, right? So again, coming back to this idea that there is no perfect solution, and it's just about how much you want to invest back, especially with your parents in this case, right? One really key aspect, and when it comes to parents specifically, of a healthy community is understanding the other perspective. And allowing for that will really help you build out how do you start involving your parents in the playful communities that you want to create and nurture. So just questions to think about, right? As you look at parents, what are some of the struggles that parents of young children are facing today, right? You've got dual income families, you've got, very nuclear families, very far away from, from their core families. You probably have first generation learners. You probably have families that may not be completely tech savvy. So what are the struggles that your family, maybe they have very demanding jobs and they're unable to spend or understand the work that their child needs to do when they take it home, right? What does that support look like for their child's educators and the fellow parent community, right? What kinds of guilt do parents struggle with, and how can you ease this? That's another question to kind of ask on why, because parenting from a guilty space is the worst kind of parenting, right? So if you can find a way to alleviate this idea of I'm feeling guilty about this, I'm feeling guilty I don't spend time with my child, my child says so many other parents are available at the school or do pickups and drops, but I just don't have that bandwidth. How do you address those kind of concerns, right? Is your ask of parent involvement reasonable? I think that's a very important one, right? Be it in our communication, be it in when we expect parents to be there, given schedules that parents have, is our ask really reasonable? And what do family dynamics look like in your community, right? Because that will change like locality to locality, city to city. And what does that family dynamic look like? And hence, who do you need to involve as a result, right? I say parents now, but could it be more grandparents in a particular community, right? Is it more mums in one? Can you do more equal parenting in another, right? Your realities are so very different, but this is sort of a good set of base questions to start asking yourselves in terms of understanding your parents, to then be able to start saying, how do we now bring them into playful learning, right? And really a key part of involving your parents is being completely non-judgmental. And I think it's very hard. We struggle that the judginess can seep in very fast, but really trying to stay agnostic about it and being non-judgmental of these various scenarios they have will help parents bring their guard down and want to participate in your communities a lot more. So I think this piece, we always say that we assume in many times that play is noisy and messy. And yes, like 15-60% of the time it can be. But a play can also look different in so many different ways, right? Like recently I was having a conversation and someone, highlighted how a child sitting and reading a book in a corner is playful to that child, right? And that is an act of playful learning. And we just assume that it needs to be noisy and messy and loud and all of these things, but there are so many other smaller acts of playful learning, and I'm going to dive into some examples of how we do this with our parents, right? So we created sort of 5 areas that we felt would help bring parents in when we were looking at playful learning and nurturing this with our parents, right? And some of the tenets were including to help them discover certain things, to help them display a certain set of skills, to involve them, to include them, and then to co-create with them. And I'm going to take you through examples of each of these aspects and how we've worked with our parent communities on this, right? So discover. So this is, and I'll tell you the age range as well, so that you have some sense of, where we're going in terms of what you can do with different ages, right? So this is our school, and specifically with our 6 to 12-year-olds. And of course, parents were like, listen, how do I playfully do science with my child? And you tend to go back to teaching your child the way you were taught, right? So there was always sort of this headbutting. No, you have to study it this way. No, you have to do it this way. You have to just memorize this piece. So we came up with this idea of parent and child projects, right? Now, all of you, I'm sure, know the minute there's a project that's given, really it's the parent doing it and not the child, right? Or at least like 80% of the time. So we said, given that we know that this is the scenario, let's just first make our peace with the fact that this is a parent and child project and call it that. Let's not call it a child project and really it's the parent doing it. So it was a parent and child project. They're given a month to come up to kind of produce this project. We would give them a topic. we prepare a very detailed document that we send parents, which starts with what is our goal for this project, how are ways that you can, with examples, how are ways that you can work with your child through this project. We give them guidance notes, we give them examples and ways to be playful. And we found that this is a really interesting piece, because really this is the part where a parent and a child get to know each other, right? There have been examples of how a parent came and told me and said, this time I'm going to focus on my child working smart and not hard, and I'm going to teach them the difference, because we're really short on time and there's this big parent event, and so they had to make these brochures, but they actually did it on Word together and used a template that existed and worked on it and produced it in a day, right? There's absolutely nothing wrong with this. This is a skill that they're able to teach their children, right? We've had kids who've refused to do their work, and we've told parents, listen, that's also part of playful learning. They've got to sort of understand the consequence of not finishing it. So push as much as you can to get them to do this together. And if they don't, well, then they come to school and they see, what could have been possible, right? And this always has worked brilliantly, because then there is no animosity between the parent and the child. And then the child comes to school and sort of realizes that, hey, my parent was helping me over here, and I can do better, right? It helps children see the strengths their parents have. So we always make sure that parent projects have different. So this was, of course, a brochure they had to create. We've done one where they had to create a video where they had to interview grandparents and different generations with 5 questions to understand how play looked like when they were growing up. Did they have uniforms? What was school like? We did a read aloud story where they then had to record it, and we put it up on Spotify as a podcast and actually created our own story shelf of stories. We've done 3D work where they've actually had to create volcanoes and things around that. They've had chart paper work. So it also played to different strengths that parents had, right? So there was always at least one project that a parent could shine in on their own. So if someone had great video skills, then that was a project they're going to shine in, and the kids knew they had the best support over there. You had an artist parent, and some of these brochures were produced. So it was also playing a little bit to parents' strength to be able to see how could they show their children what best looks like. And then children would sort of be inspired to take their projects through, right? So this is our parent-child project. It's really been a hit. And then we follow this through in something called a display day. So typically, all these projects are put on work. We have it once every 2 months where the entire community comes together. The way we got all the parents to show up for this is one, timing. So we put it from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock on a Friday morning. So it was easy. They would come, they would drop their kids off, hang about, and then be able to go to work. So it didn't disrupt their day. And that's what I mean by understanding the times your parents can actually commit with ease without having to take leave from office or being an awkward time. We also threw in a carrot. We always give them coffee and vadas and idlis for breakfast. So they look forward now to this community breakfast that we do together. They come, they chat, so the parents get a chance to actually get to know each other as a community. And then they spend an hour where the children present the work that they've done in the last 2 months, which will include these projects that go up, right? So there's a little bit of competition between the parents, and they're able to see other work kids have done, and then correlate that and continue to bring that into later projects as they work with their children. And display days are like a pride and joy for children, because they really get to put together everything that they've learned and talk to their parents about it, right? Which goes beyond the workbooks. The workbooks are always going home, but this is all the other stuff that they're doing. Involved, so we have something called adventure days that we do, and this is across our kindergartens and our school as well. Twice a quarter, we make sure that we get out of our spaces, right? And we call them adventure days because they're exciting days. All the kids love going out. We can go anywhere from a fire station to a traffic park to a museum. The top left picture is where we went to the Shrishti Design Fair that they had put up one year. And we encourage parents to join us. One, for the younger ones from a safety perspective. So we actually need lots more hands when we go out of the school and kindergarten premises. But two, to be able to actually be involved in what the children are seeing, right? So there are smaller groups that will walk together, that will explain the things that they're seeing, will question things, will encourage them to think or spend a little more time with it. So we're not herding these children along and making big, loud announcements and expecting everybody to understand that, right? And again, it's a quick, parents come in for maybe 1.5 hours. And if your entire parent community is involved, a parent needs to do this maybe once a year, maximum twice a year, right? Which makes it very, very easy for them to engage in. So if you see, it's always about like shorter hours, not large commitments. We send out the notification maybe 2 weeks before the actual adventure day, because that's really realistically when you know what your calendar looks like and you can plan for it and commit to be there, right? And we brief parents on what you kind of need to be involved in an adventure day. We have a come and play with us session. So this is around festivals. We invite parents because we think that it's best that, you know, children kind of get to see the cultural differences they have within their communities. So we use festivals as a way to invite parents to come in, and we've had parents and siblings do puppetry workshops, or they'll cook a little something and bring it to celebrate the festival, or a little art and craft. They'll read a book, and sometimes we just open it up to come and play with us. Say, you know what, I don't believe I have a talent, but I just want to come spend time with you. So I'll come and do whatever it is that's happening in the kindergarten or at the school at that point in time, right? So we've had dads come in and, you know, play a guitar and sing. Or this week, for example, we're inviting fathers in specifically because it was Father's Day on Sunday. And we're like, you don't have to specifically come with something prepped. You can just come and be in the space and participate in whatever it is we're doing, right? So it's not intimidating that I need to know something, I need to prepare a lesson plan. Often they just want to be in the same space that children are in and participate in that learning. Community events. So we do a bunch of community events in the school through the year. We had a sports day, we have a music show, we have a flea market that the children participated in and raised funds for. And what we do at the beginning of the year is really highlight what is going to be our community events for this year. And we ask parents to just pick one, and ideally one that is aligned to a passion of theirs, right? So parents who love music and the arts and theater will sort of lean in more onto the music events. And then the parents who really love sports, they pretty much organize their entire sports day for us, right? So we only ask them to commit to one thing. And then we create an organizing committee. And then as the school and as the space and the kindergarten, we work with them to be able to, run this event end to end, right? And really, they know us best. They know you best. They know, the philosophy of your school. They know what it is you'd like to promote. They know all these various ways. And if you're a larger school, you could find a smaller aspect for them to manage. For example, the community games, right? How are we going to get parents to come on field during a sports day and participate in 5 games, right? So you could give them smaller aspects depending how big or how small you are as spaces. But we found that they get really excited about this, and they're doing it because it's an area that they love, or it's an area that they have an expertise in. We co-create parent exploration. So this was actually a result of the pandemic, when we pretty much had launched our micro school in 2020 online. And then just as things were coming back in 2021, it was so uncertain on, how long we were going to run before we were shut again. And so we said, okay, we have a few extra hours, and instead of really hiring a whole bunch of extracurricular teachers, what can we do from within the community? So we started allocating these hours called parent exploration hours. And we said, you sign up and you can run any session you want. And so we had parents who came in and did composting. We did parents who worked in hardware come and help take apart a laptop. We had a grandfather come in and do a magic show for the children, and then kind of help them through some magic tricks. And then the children were the ones that told us that they loved this, right? And so when we actually moved back into full time, it was something we preserved. And so every week right now, we have something called a parent exploration. And we also experimented where we said a parent had to commit to a whole month. And we realized that that was too long and too much for most parents to commit to. So we moved into a model where there's 1 hour a week. You can, I mean, literally, if your entire community takes 1 hour each, you're sorted for the year. And you can come and teach the children anything. You can, we've had parents do tidying and how do you fold and keep your cupboards clean, to starting a business and creating a business plan, to managing money. We had some parents who did a coding session, some who did tennis sessions. And we find that it's really important that children realize that learning happens from your community. Us as educators are not the only ones who hold learning. And the more open we are to learning from our communities, the wider our learning experiences are going to be. And as a result, we found children now know who the experts in their community are for what topic. So if they're working through something, they're like, oh, let's call so-and-so's parent because they actually know this and they could help us work this out, right? And so they start leaning in on the communities themselves that are existing in around them. So yeah, this is one of my favorite aspects of it. And literally, because a parent can do pretty much anything, it's quite exciting where a parent come in to just show his pictures of his mountaineering expeditions, right? And it just inspired them to want to travel or take pictures. This was another aspect of parent workshops, and we're actually expanding on this a little bit this year. But as a team, we divide our planning days into planning and learning. And we were looking at, in terms of learning, what can we learn from our parents as well, because they have as much to teach us, and we the wider, again, our own ability to learn, the wider we can bring it in. So we had 2 moms come and run a finance workshop for our entire team on how can you better your finances, how do you save, what are ways that you can understand the financial market, your salary, all of that. We had a set of parents who were a set of queer parents who came and led a conversation around gender and how do you talk to children in the age group of 1 to 6 and 6 to 12 about gender, or being neutral about these things, or bringing the idea of different families and love. And it was a really lovely open conversation that we had over there, right? And so we found there's so much knowledge within our parent communities. Maybe not all of it is something that children can learn, but there's so much that we as adults can actually learn from our parents as well. And they're just thrilled to be able to give back and give time to the space that takes care of their children for so long, right? So that was another really lovely unlock that we saw with our parent community. And this year we're actually going to open up this to parents as well. So if another parent is running a session on finance, like, why does it only have to be us as educators? It can actually be any parent who is interested in knowing more about it, right? And these are ways that we can continue to involve our communities in smaller ways. So yeah, just I know I've spoken for a bit, but I will slowly wrap this up. But I think when we look at involving and nurturing our parent community, right, it is an investment. It doesn't happen overnight. And we need to look at that to be able to create that stronger sense of connection. Each little outreach that you do makes the parent more secure and actually more willing to try, because they're actually really nervous. They're like, I'm not an educator. I don't know what to do. I'm just a parent. Like, how do I contribute to this? So it's also making them feel comfortable. And that deeper connection brings even bigger unlocks that will benefit us as learning spaces to be able to really bring in play-focused learning as well in that, right? And helping parents understand. So when they run some of these sessions, or when they participate in an adventure day, when they participate in a parent exploration, they see the wonder on children's faces. They see the conversations it sparks. They witness how powerful play actually is when you make when you make this more accessible. And it really powers a set of shared values as an organization, right? And that loyalty will hold you in such good strength when you're looking at being able to promote that idea of play and learning within your community. So yeah, I think that's really what I have to say. And questions.
Thanks, Helen. This was so nice. I'd love to hear. Yeah, we'd love to open it up and hear if anyone has any questions, would want to share anything about your own parent exploration journeys or how you have helped co-create it. Have you been a part of it? And we'd love to see some faces.
Nice, Helen.
Hi. Hi, Helen. Always a joy to hear you. Loved what you said. Just couple of things just couple of things. I think I love the parent-child projects, though I think in one way you put it as is just to name something that already happens. Uncannily, it is something that is most prized, isn't it? The parent and child interacting with each other. Just wanted to hear from you. I think you would have heard so many parents subsequent to being involved in such projects, right? Anything that has stayed with you in terms of what they said, in terms of what changed for them? Just seeing if anything that they said that has remained with you. That is one. The other, I think, is a question that we're all grappling with, right? When we talk of play as a way to learn, and we talking about this in a context where that is not play is not seen as a way to learn, right? What has worked for you? One, you do say, it is a long-term relationship, something that you have to work with parents over time. But you also mentioned a couple of things, right? Like during these play times, when they see wonder on a child's face. So I'm just asking, what are the quick hacks? How can you, you can tell me if there aren't any, but just curious to understand if, in terms of, I mean, we are struggling, right? What is the message? What is that message that will, click something for parents? I think with your years of experience, if you could share some of the things that work. Thank you.
Sure. No, I'll try. Thank you for those questions. So I'm going to try the last one first and then work backwards, right? I think that unlock changes every time, right? Through the context we've seen. We've seen that just the way the ecosystem around you changes, everyone's view of it takes different shapes and forms. But I think something that we've really seen is important, and I don't think anyone has fully cracked it in the play space yet, is documentation, right? I mean, we use this word play very loosely. And we struggle to justify it, we struggle to talk about it, right? And so we do a 6-month very deep dive observation of every child in our space, and we sit with the parents for almost 30 to 45 minutes every half year, right? And we've tried to, over the years, refine this process of asking the right questions, using key indicators of play to then substantiate it with examples of how does this goal of creativity actually get met, or how have we seen your child develop on this metric, for lack of another word, right? But we found that documentation is very key, and that onus falls on you as the space, right? Reports like can do, can't do, will do, or a graded system will never support a play focused space, right? But little notes that you can send on a daily basis, updating your parents via some sort of learning system or an app that you have on, here's what they did today as an activity, which we do every day, really helps them understand what you're trying to achieve, right? And then they see the ahas back at home, and then the dots are also connecting, right? And that, I mean, we've done such complex activities, topics with children. We make sure we in both school and kindergarten, we work in a theme-based approach, and we don't pick, shapes or colors. We find that those naturally find their way into our conversations, right? But we do the solar system, or different kinds of dinosaurs, or books that we do, and you see that it's the complexity of topic. If you're doing it through play, how children grasp it is outstanding, right? But I come back to the documentation piece, being very critical of our organizations to crack, and it's a hard one because I think everyone worldwide is struggling with that. I think on your first question on, when parents and children did the project together, what was that feedback, right? It was a bit of a tug of war, because for parents, it was a sense of control that you exhibited over your child in being able to do this project, right? And your first way to work together is actually relinquishing the sense of control, and that I don't have to tell you how to do this. I possibly have as much to learn from you as you do from me. So I remember the first one really clearly, like, parents were frustrated and just struggling, and it helped us improve what do we then need to put together in this document to be able to send it to them, right? So that was one, that sense of, okay, I need to sort of just take a step back and let my child lead at least 50% of the way first, and then start sort of, scaffolding that and then being part of that process. I think at the same time for children, it was, when a parent was either very involved in the process or decided that a child was being quite willful, they've had learnings on either side, right? Either a particular project went really well because their parent was able to showcase and tell them that this is one way to do it and it'll work out really well. There's a huge level of trust built in. Oh, my parent does know something, right? Because typically it's this battle of only the school knows, you don't know, you don't understand it. We're constantly trying to bridge this gap that no single person is right in this system, right? Everybody has a way to approach this. So for children to start realizing that I can do it this way, but I can also do it this way, and I can also do it that way, was a big aha for them.
Okay, wow, thanks.
There are quite a few questions in the chat as well, Helen.
Yes.
So I think the first one is Naima's asking, in my experience, parent engagement always becomes difficult due to the heightened need for daily wages, and hence time becomes a constraint. I was wondering if you've tried any asynchronous methods to engaging parents and how well they've worked.
Yeah, I have. I'll be honest and say that, our reality is a little different. So, I fully understand that this can be a huge constraint. But I think the only example I sort of can lean on is looking at how can you work around their timings a little bit, right? So depending on when they have to head to work, when is that clock in and clock out, and can you work something else around that? If it's a bit earlier that they start with, or a little bit later that they do, right? I think that could be something that would definitely help. But I will say that I don't have a very strong example to give from our reality at this point on this.
Another question is on, do all parents engage in these activities willingly? If yes, also what is the motivation factor?
Breakfast, sometimes, lots of times. No, not all. I think some can be very intimidated by the idea. Some can have really stressful work and travel a lot. Some can, not also want to participate. So that onus kind of comes on us sometimes to reach out to see what could be, hindering them from wanting to participate, encouraging them to do that, saying that we'll be here to be able to do that. Sometimes it's knowing what talents they have and, saying, listen, we need your support on this talent or this passion that you have, and can you come in and support us? Working around timings, creating some sense of flexibility has always always helped. The biggest motivator that we've honestly seen is their own children, right? And often, if a parent hasn't been able to participate, children can be a bit, upset, and that is hard to manage because you really don't want to put that pressure also on a parent. But that's definitely one of the biggest motivators. And I think at the heart of it, I feel like we all love being teachers. We all love, we want to share what we know. And I think that's the part that if you can work on with a parent and support them, teaming them up, we've seen sometimes if you know a parent's a bit nervous, taking that effort to say, I think you'll work really well with this parent, and why don't you get together, and facilitating a conversation to kind of take things forward is another way to kind of get them just step over that.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. Any other questions that anyone would like to just unmute and ask, actually, or just add to chat? Don't want to unmute. Okay, one more question coming in. We want children to grow with least biases and preconceived notions, but parents, while interacting, might consciously and or unconsciously rub these in. How would you handle it?
Yeah, I hear you. That's a hard one, right? I think we start with a briefing a lot of the times on, what is our expectations? What are some of the, just a quick reminder of what can you say? What can you not say? What are topics that we don't, we're very, let's say, agnostic about, or we don't bring in that bias. We also always make sure that there is a representation of somebody from in terms of the educators over there, or one of us always around. You can't prevent it, honestly, 100%, but at least you've heard it and you can address it in another forum with children, right? Be it at a circle time, or be it at a huddle that you're having, or a conversation that you're having. You can do it in the gentlest of ways. Sometimes you may need to also sort of have that chat with parents and say, hey, that's not something we promote. But I think over time, as you do this, you'll realize that your parent community is so aligned with you in terms of your philosophy and your values. And that's really why they're sending their child to your space, right? That they're very willing and open to listen to it. So yeah, absolutely. In the beginning, it can be very nerve-wracking, but you can create other scaffolds like being present and a small set of rules and do's and don'ts. Like like when we do the adventure days, we always have to brief them on what their role is, because sometimes they can be just so happy to see each other. The parents are chatting and we're like, no, it's great you've met each other, but let's focus on the children, and can you do this, or can you be vigilant? One part of your role is being vigilant and taking care of the children to see that no one's taking their pictures when we're out. So there is a lot of hand holding, and we've seen that the best activities have happened when you're open and honest and you give them that expectation. It's easier to work within that boundary for them.
Few more questions in the chat.
Yes. Oh, I love grandparents. I think that the best addition to parent communities, Joe, and I think that they bring this wonderful sense of things we start forgetting generation to generation back. We had a 90-year-old grandmother come and do a Vishu celebration with the children not so long ago, and it was the first time she was seeing her grandchild's kindergarten. And it was really wonderful. We had siblings do a puppetry show. We also try and get in other peers. So sometimes, because we're a very open space, we have children who may be anywhere from 12 to 15 doing little internships in the summer, where they'll come to help the slightly younger ones, and kind of, because the younger ones look at them as a peer, and so they're able to work with them through, let's say, math or something that they're struggling in science, and they'll run little sessions as well, right, for them. And you need to step in a little bit more to guide them on maybe what's there. We love having grandparents just come and read sometimes, or sing songs with the children. It's just as simple as that. You don't have to worry about anything, and playing again to that strength of what they do best, and that just they can come in for half an hour and do that as well. How do you teach Indian languages? So in the kindergarten, the way that we realized, and the one thing that we love is music. And we find that that's the best way for us to introduce languages, especially for children between the ages of 1 and 6. And so, so we do all sorts of songs. There is a beautiful book. I think it's not by Tara. It's called Olugoti Tolugoti, and it's got rhymes from, I think, maybe 30 states in India, in English. It translated to the actual language, and in English where you can actually pronounce it in that language, right? And so we use that a lot to sort of keep that culture alive, but keep languages also alive with children. So that's how we do it with the younger children. With the older children, it's a bit more it's a bit more specific to one language, and then our educators do games and things like this well with them. Sorry, even lost. Apart from school activities, activities can be organized in libraries for children and parents. How do you organize that with parents? Yeah. Sorry, Abhijit, did you mean public libraries or within the school space? Maybe I'll come back to that once we comment.
It's a public library, ma'am.
Public library. So we
yeah.
did, yeah. So we actually did a field trip. So Carbon Park in Bangalore has a lovely children's library, tucked away in the corner closer to Vidhan Sauda. So one of our adventure days was actually out to the public library, and the parents accompanied us, and we sat around with the kids, and the adventure was to sit and read books in a new space. So that's how we used a public library space, and a lot of the public spaces are very open to schools coming and using them. You just have to crack. I think most often they need one simple letter, and you find the right person, and they have really reasonable, sometimes free spaces. They don't even charge once you get past sort of the approvals, which is not that tough. They're very happy to host you, and then you just have the parents accompany you on this, right? So they can just read to the children and encourage them to explore books. But once we have a bookstore in Bangalore, which we love, Lightroom bookstore, and one time we took our kids over there, and it was an adventure day, and they sat around, and the owner read to them, and parents read to them, and then we allowed them all to pick up a book as well that they would like within a certain budget with the Pratham books that were available, right? So that was also something that we do. Sorry, I've lost track, Maitri, on which question I am on. Children demanding parents to come to class than regular teachers. This could happen because of the novelty. Yeah, they could, but I think what's worked is to have a segregated hour for it, right? So that's why we call it our parent exploration hour. And it's a fixed hour in our timetable every week. And that's the time when parents participate, right? Everything else is still got its schedule. It's still got when educators will participate in that. So hopefully that helps reduce some of the friction that Manoj mentioned. Sorry, not Manoj, Ganesh. We can connect parents with children in the library through books, read alouds, book talks, performances, participation, co-creation. What other mediums can there be? You could do circle time if that's what your space has. You could do language immersion days, so playing on what language skill set they have that's big, different from English, that may be, or the primary language that you use in the space. It could be, we've had a parent come in and set up a zip line once because he was very outdoors, and the kids, just did a zip line all day in the kindergarten and took turns for it. He repeated it again in our school. So I think if you 1 year, we created a Google form and we made parents, we asked like 5 questions, like what's your passion? If there's one thing you'd like to share, what would it be? What languages do you know? What countries have you visited? Because again, sometimes parents may not be entirely able to realize what they can contribute to. But if you're doing something around countries and you suddenly see that in your database, a parent stayed in a specific country for a really long time, it's a very rich experience to be able to bring into the learning that the children are having, right? So having a really robust database of your parents and just asking really fun questions that you would not, of course, ask on your admission form, you may not have stored anywhere else, but to be, where do you work as a company? Some companies, someone's a baker and you suddenly realize that could be an adventure day to be able to go to their bakery and do something, right? And I think this could be across spaces, right? I mean, if and it's always been a thought that even in villages, when we look at it, everyone has a special skill set. And is there a way that we can put children to learn that? Even if it's bricklaying, even if it's being the potter, even if it's, there is learning if we can match those two together for a small 1-hour session, right? So it doesn't have to be as fancy as a zip line. It can really be what your community is good at, and everybody is good at something. What does it take to move away from thinking about parent engagement as an activity or a bunch of specific activities, and that something should happen continuously at home and very naturally? I think that's a hard one. I think that we're a little bit away from it. I don't think, for some parents it comes naturally. For other parents, they could use the guidance, but I think that it will inspire them as to what they can do at home. And I always tell parents, just do what you love, right? The one thing, as much as I'm in play-based education, at home, I'm a very different parent. I'm not sitting and doing Pinterest activities with my children every hour, right? But I love cooking, and that's the bond I've created with my children. So when it comes to actually being playful at home, it's typically going to revolve around cooking together in the kitchen or making brownies or trying to bake a cake, right? And my husband's very different. So I say, just lead from what makes you happy. At the end of the day, children just want to spend time with you. And that, being playful will come naturally as long as you're happy in what you do. That play will shine through. That sense of happiness will shine through, right? Prasad, the name of the book is Olugati Tolugati. I will send it to Maitri, so maybe she can send it out as well to you. It keeps going in and out of print, but it's such a beautiful book. Joe, cooking was a hit. So we got, as part of our parent explorations, we actually got 2-3 parents together to run a set of sessions around making easy breakfast for yourself, right? So in this idea of nurturing independence in children, we said, how could you learn 2 or 3 things that you can make on your own? So they taught them how to make a muesli bowl. They taught them how to do a fruit salad bowl and how to make pancakes. And we saw this huge change where children started taking ownership of making their own sandwiches, food rather. We provide meals at school, but 1 day a week, the kids have to bring in sandwiches. And we've seen that now they're all making their own sandwiches at home. And so that's really fostering the sense of independence. But it's always like, how did you assemble your sandwich? My sandwich is different. I like the cheese on the side and the tomato this way and the cucumber this way. Some will assemble it when they come there. So yeah, cooking's always been a great way to bring in that playful learning. Yeah. Have I got all questions, Maitri?
Yeah, Helen, I think you.
Tulika, yes, thank you for that. Tulika.
Yeah, I think some great ideas there. I feel like cooking classes sounds fantastic.
It's an easy one to get to.
Yeah.
I really even just love the one I'm keeping your cupboards tidy and your rooms tidy. And she taught, this parent taught them, how do you fold your clothes? And there's this little hack of a cardboard that you can create to kind of fold your clothes very quickly and keep them neatly. So I think even life skills have a space in there.
Or even childhood games. I feel like so many of us can teach kids, just games that we used to play when we were younger.
Yeah. One did book binding. So like, how do you just bind your own books using needle and thread, which also helps with like stitching. One did finger knitting. They don't have to be complex, but yeah, I know it takes a while for you to unlock that with parents.
Yeah, I think I loved what you said about being able to like do what you like doing and just involving children into it. And then that just brings out the playfulness and makes it shine.
It really does. I was having a chat with a bunch of kids on the International Day of Play, and one of my questions to them was, what do you want to tell your parents to do more of, right? And there was a string of, they travel too much, they're always working, and we don't understand it. And so we said, okay, so give us some ideas of play that you want your parents to participate in, and all of them, without even blinking, just said, we just want them to spend time with us, right? So it was so clear. It doesn't matter the activity, it's the idea of time with you. And you could be unpacking a suitcase, and that can be playful for them, right? So I think that's the part that we have to figure is, what am I doing that just involves my child in that, and that's playful enough for them?
Yeah, that's such a beautiful thought to close this wonderful session on. If anyone would like to get in touch with Helen, happy to connect. But Helen Isar from Papagoya, and the book recommendation is Oluguti Toluguti from Tulika Books. It's been added into chat. But thanks, Helen, for leading such a wonderful talk on playful parenting. I think that term is just going to stick. And I love how you brought it out with the wonderful ideas that you've given everyone to think about, and just food for thought.
Thank you. Thank you for the platform, and thank you for promoting this idea of play so strongly. Thanks everybody for listening to me.
And definitely, if anyone would like to unmute and say anything, otherwise we're ready to close, but please feel free to unmute and say a few words if you'd like to about playful parenting. Yeah, parents can also be invited to the library, definitely. But yeah, on that note, I think we'll close for today. Thanks, Joe. We're glad for the dazzling ideas. Thank you all for joining in for another Bachpan Manao Badhte Jao Masterclass. This was an exciting one on parenting, and I'm looking forward to so many more coming up. And we will see you next month. Thank you all. Bachpan Manao Badhte Jao.
Bye.
Bye.